Have you ever met someone who, in your eyes, was a truly evil person? If yes, what's the story? You/sufficient Berry 827 responded. I worked briefly with a psychologist whose clients were sex offenders. Their therapy was mandatory. Most almost seemed like normal guys but a little off. But one would give me the chills just entering the room. I could feel him before I could see him. He made me so uncomfortable. There was the lobby and the reception area where I sat a day. My area was behind a security door that had to be buzzed open, and there was one of those partitions with a few slots for paperwork, etc., but the clients couldn't access me unless I buzzed them in. This guy would sit across the lobby, the chair farthest from my area, and just stare at me, rubbing his palms on his knees. He never said more than a few words to me. After a few months of this, I told my boss that I couldn't stand it anymore. I started feeling really paranoid and afraid of walking to my car or being followed or something, and when I said that, my boss became very serious and asked me if I had seen the client outside of the office, anywhere at all, even just for a second. Turns out that client had been stalking and raping women since the 80s, and I was his type. You/Lepush responded. My uncle, father's brother. I'm adopted, and during my whole childhood my mother tried shielding me from this man by keeping me away, but was kind enough to not speak too illy of him. She told me he loved us but is just a closed-off person. When growing up I learned of how twisted he was. Once my grandmother died, he tried taking over my dad's part of the inheritance. He worked overtime for my father to divorce my mom, and once she passed away he tried, along with his wife, to force my dad into changing his will to suit himself. Once my dad got ill and I had to hospitalize him, he made a false complaint against me, saying I abused my elderly helpless father into starvation. All because I wasn't blood and a person of color. I was very close to spend years in prison for pure pettiness. And to top things off, he spread a rumor during my dad's funeral about me abducting my dad and keeping them apart. Yeah, that's him. You/prestigious_dog_1942 responded. The wife of my old boss. She'd come late into work angry drunk, parking her Mercedes across 2 spaces, and demand everyone drop everything to help her fix some trivial issue. If anyone had anything more pressing to get on with, she'd fly off the handle screaming about how it's her fucking company. Then my boss died and she was left in charge. She buried her head in the sand and would scream and cry about how she was going to kill herself when anyone asked her to do anything important like sign bank paperwork or bring someone in to help. She didn't let any of his family attend the funeral, and went into detail in the eulogy about how they got together through an affair and how people getting hurt was necessary. Then when someone at the company who'd been there by the boss side since the beginning was diagnosed with lung cancer, she said, and I quote, "I wish he'd hurry up and die so I don't have to give him any more sick pay." Then the business went under and we all got made redundant via email. No idea what happened to her. She lived by herself and had no contact with anyone, burned every single bridge she had, even her neighbors. I don't believe in karma in the spiritual sense, but I definitely feel like she's living her punishment for being so vile. You/stock_son7390 responded. My sister. She has stolen hundreds if not thousands of pain pills from my grandmother and my mom, hundreds of dollars from everyone she knows, and several things from numerous stores like Walmart or Dollar General. She's a habitual lying sociopath who cares about no one but herself. If she was thirsty, she'd sell both her kids for a drink. I could say more, but I'm tired, and trying to remember every single bad thing she did would take me at least an hour if not longer. I try to see the good in people. When I hear of people murdering and stealing and everything else, I try to see it from their point of view. I genuinely wish we could all do and be better people. If she dropped dead right now, I would absolutely not shed a single tear. I wouldn't be happy she's gone, but at the same time the world would be a better place if she wasn't in it. You/agonist PhD responded. Yes. Ms. Marcos, a teacher at St. Cyril Elementary School in Pittsburgh in the 80s and 90s, was a truly evil person. When I was in her class, she behaved super sweetly to this poor boy who had just had to repeat 3rd grade and was understandably awkward when joining us, and would send him out of the classroom to run errands for her as though it were a special privilege. Whenever he left the room, she would read his assignments aloud to the class and make jokes about his mistakes. Then when she heard footsteps, she'd remind us all that what happens in the classroom stays in the classroom. Of course I whistle-blew and told both my parents and school administration. The result was no consequences for her, but I started getting sent out on errands, or in my case, not actually going and instead staying within earshot to eavesdrop. When I was gone, she would remind everyone that I took what was in the classroom to others and cannot be trusted, and that no one should ever trust me. A few years later, my mom was student teaching at St. Cyril, and walked past Ms. Marcos's door to hear her telling the class not to trust another student for betraying them by telling their parents what happened in class. Just an awful, evil woman. U/Lurkanon 027 responded. Used to manage a Staples copy center. We had an idiot GM that lied their way into the position and it showed. Eventually the regional manager decided we needed to get rid of her and put a new GM in place. He decided to move one of his other GMs from another store to ours. My store was one of the highest profit stores in the company because our commercial rent was locked very close to the original rent from when the building was built. We are talking about needing to be open for 2 days to cover the bills for the whole month. The new manager came in and decided he wanted a fresh start and more profit and launched an internal investigation claiming widespread employee theft. He had friends in loss prevention and convinced them to find anything they could on everyone in the store. Everyone save the 2 assistant managers was fired and blacklisted from ever being employed by Staples again. I would later find out that the guy was a former cop that had been fired for unethical conduct. I didn't just find out about this passively. One of his former officers that was a member at my MMA gym made a point of telling me about it and said stay the fuck away from him. You can't trust anything he says or does. I ended up making it my personal campaign to get him removed from the company. He was finally removed, but I'm still blacklisted. U/somebody 8985754 responded. Yes. That person was my father. Without writing a novel, he was physically abusive towards myself, and sexually, physically, and emotionally abusive towards my mother and sisters. One of my sisters is also my niece as a result of his grotesque belief about women and his obsession to have a son. There are arguments that could be made that there are worse people in the world, but in my mind there's no such thing as anything worse than what my father was, a monster. Edit. I can't believe that of all the posts that LVE made over the years this is the one that blows up. I mean it's weird as fuck to me that my trauma is somehow entertainment to others. But I did want to answer the question honestly. Just to answer a few questions quickly and clearly so I don't have to repeat myself too many times, both my parents have passed away along with 6 of my 9 sisters. My sister niece is one of the ones who has passed away. My extended family treats me very well and I have a very close relationship with them. But my remaining 3 sisters who are still in the United States refuse to speak to me. My family disowned me when I was 14 because I was gay. I'm now 37, so in all honesty no time lost. I don't think LVE ever had a post that hit 500 upvotes, ever. So I'm a little bit not sure how to respond correctly. U/Pacman Funky responded. There was a kid who lived in my road. He was the youngest and even at his early age, maybe 9 years old. There was just something wrong with him. He just had these cold dead eyes. Anything he was told not to do was like a challenge to him. Even just things like it's good to be nice to people was just a way to prove them wrong. I remember I went to his house for his birthday. His sister comes downstairs and starts singing a song in front of us. He just glares at her, gets up, walks over to her and rips the lyric sheet out of her hands, tells her it's crap and throws it in the bin. She goes away in tears. The parents go to comfort her. I said to him that was uncalled for. His reaction: grabs my throat and starts trying to choke me. I laugh it off with his hands still round my throat. One of his parents had come back and told him to stop and calm down. And then he just keeps choking me and now it's starting to get tighter and I realized my god, he really is trying to choke me. I could see in his face it was getting screwed up like he's putting in effort to do it. His parent then yanks him off me and demand he apologize to his sister. The party was over. Him and his parents soon moved away. A few years ago, a friend said to me, hey, remember that kid? He's in jail now for killing someone. Shot them. Turns out he became a drug dealer. Someone was dealing on his patch and he just went up to them and shot them. 25 years in the can. Can hardly say I was surprised. I dread to think what else he got up to. U/Scarlet Nightingale responded. A guy I went on one date with. He just gave me bad vibes the entire time. LV never felt like that on a date before, where you get the feeling you have to do everything you can to protect yourself, not make this guy mad, not give him any excuses to say you owe him anything, not be alone with him. There was just this undercurrent of anger running through him that you could feel. Plus an overwhelming feeling of him constantly lying about everything. Plus he was just too handsy. I always made it a habit to carry enough money to cover myself for dinner and never get into a car with someone on a first date. It was the right choice in this case. The check for dinner came when he was in the bathroom, so I quickly shoved my money in there to cover myself and the tip. He came back, saw it and just looked furious. I declined a second date with him, over text. Then a week later he started harassing me in the middle of the night, masturbating on the phone. I couldn't block him since it was a restricted number and I didn't want to turn off my phone since my grandma has been really unwell, She died not long after this. If I ever see his name or picture in the headlines as a rapist or serial killer, I will not be one bit surprised. You/deleted responded. My sister has borderline personality disorder and likely narcissistic personality disorder. She's adopted and got a diagnosis in adulthood. My sister suffered through extreme, horrific, child abuse in early childhood and was abandoned by her primary caregiver, which led to disorganized attachment. But when I met her, we were both dumb kids and I had no idea what was going on. I just saw someone that was socially skilled, manipulative, good and bad, and could make a ton of acquaintances within seconds of walking in the room. People just love her. She could say "watch this," and make the boys fall in love with her almost instantly. I was a socially awkward kid, and in awe. Yet, I had to basically walk her through cognitive empathy often though. It was like she could put on a performance and say the right things or do the right things emote for social approval, but didn't quite understand that other people had feelings, or that their feelings matter over her own impulses. Social things like relationships, even friendships, and sex were 100% transactional. She has slept with her close friends' husbands over and over again and shown absolutely zero remorse, cheated in every single relationship she has ever been in, as soon as someone new and shiny walks past, become addicted to drugs, sabotaged her birth control, successfully, to trap a guy, had the baby and traumatized her child, can't fathom accountability, and her life is a revolving door of acquaintances that look good on surface level, but are seldom lasting friendships. You/stillmarie76 responded. My brother. He had every opportunity handed to him. He was violent from the time he was small. He hurt neighbor kids, our little sister, pets, you name it. He wanted to move out. Parents gave him a single wide trailer with all nice furniture from their house. He burned it down for funsies. My dad said he saw the devil in him while he was dancing around laughing at the fire that he caused. He needed a car, they got him a car. He needed a new house, they gave him one of their rentals. He got in trouble, mom bailed him out. He got in trouble with an assault. His mom paid a lawyer big bucks to get an attempted murder charge reduced to assault. He did 18 months. He gets out of prison and gets his free house and free car. I don't think he even made it a year before he murdered some girl that he was with. He strangled her with a cell phone charger. He set her body on fire and left her on the side of the road. She was only identifiable from a pin that she had in her shoulder. He got life without parole. He's still causing problems in prison. According to him, it's not like they can send him to prison again. You/deleted responded. My father-in-law. I met him exactly once, but I know all of this to be true. Narcissist, misogynistic, emotionally abusive, controlling, literally put his children's food money in a crack pipe and smoked it away. Even without the drugs, he was pure evil. First wife he knocked up when she was barely 17, he was 20-something. They had my husband and his one full sibling. He got my bio-MIL hooked on meth for 10+ years, so he was also able to get full custody since his addiction was easier to hide. She's been clean for 6+ years now, but not until after finding an even worse man to have more kids with. She's doing fine now and we're actually very proud of her. Then he met my other MIL, who did the bulk of raising my husband even though they met when he was 7-8ish and she was 17. That evil man learned from his first marriage and kept her pregnant and exhausted and away from his drug stash. My husband has 8 half-siblings, and all 5 of them were born by the time MIL number 2 was 25. One example of many. When she went back to school, he smashed her laptop because there were men on campus. My husband, who was still a little kid, picked through it and saved her hard drive and important school stuff. Luckily, she managed to leave with the kids, with my husband's help. It's been almost 15 years since all of his children and both of his ex-wives abandoned him to his drugs and ego. He still thinks that he is owed his family and calls MIL number 2 to whine, why did everyone leave me? I'm their father every once in a while. You/Dritcham2599 responded. My college had a social app called Yik Yak. It was all about making anonymous posts for nearby people to see. There was one guy on the app who briefly lived in my building who was probably the saddest and most despicable person LVE ever known. He would spend all day every day on the app posting and commenting the most hateful things in the world. You could always tell it was him because he wrote at a 5th grade level and had a few favorite words that I bet you could guess. He used some kind of emulator that allowed him to continuously make a new account every time he got banned, which was like every other day. There were multiple times he went to a location to fight someone that had wronged him. And I know for a fact. He was kicked out of at least 2 different dorms on campus. He looked, and smelled, like the biggest country neckbeard you can imagine. He threatened to murder women for like black dudes, he ranted about females at least twice a day, freaked out if anyone insulted him, and generally was just a piece of shit. He clearly had some kind of narcissistic personality disorder because he genuinely could not see why he was in the wrong. He eventually disappeared off of campus and the app after a while, and I am 100% convinced it was because he was either arrested for planning for kind of attack or he died. There is no chance he would have left on his own. Tormenting people on there was his only pastime. Thanks for watching, everyone. Like and subscribe for more videos like this one. If you enjoyed this video and want to dive even deeper into our community, consider becoming a channel member. Members get exclusive perks like early access to videos, custom emojis, shoutouts, etc. And it's a great way to support the channel so I can keep bringing you the content you love.